Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to hear an unusual and funny story taken from the Canterbury Tales, the masterpiece written by Geoffrey Chaucer. The book includes several tales narrated by different characters. Today, we will see together the Seminer's Tale. The protagonist is a mendicant friar who constantly goes around the village to preach and to convince the richest people to give him some money for the church. He seems to be convinced of the importance of masses and bringing the faithful to the right track. But the truth is he only wants that money for himself and for his own gain. One day, he decided to beg for some food to a house where there lived a wife and a husband that he knew very well. The husband was seriously sick, and the wife begged the friar to confess him, also because he was a very wrathful man. The friar took the occasion to ask for more money to give it to his convent, but the man understood quite soon that he was just trying to gain money for himself. Then the man promised to give the friar something really precious that he would have had to give to the other friars of his convent. After he had made him swear this, he told him to search under his bottom to find that thing, and when the hand of the friar was around it...
Stop, please stop. This is absolutely inappropriate for a young public just like you. Did you understand what just happened? So, Thomas has this party on the end of the friar. Oh my god, that's insane, that's crazy, unbelievable. But, sincerely, I'm a bit curious to know the reaction of the friar. Don't you? So, let's see it.
After what had just happened, the friar was really angry and disgusted by that outrageous act that was against him as against all the clergy, so that he immediately went away, lifting curses against the man. He was still at the edge of the anger when he arrived at the house of one of the men he used to confess, and with whom he was pretty close friend. The friar immediately told him all the story that had already happened, causing sympathy in his friend, that started wondering how might a fight be divided between 12 people that were the other friars. Then his squire suggested a way to do that. He suggested to try to catch a wheel, removing it from a cart, and put it on the floor. Each friar then would have to kneel down and keep his nose at the edge of one of the 12 rays of the wheel. Finally, the man who farted would have to do that again. In that way, both the smell and the sound would have been divided equally in 12 parts. So, the story ends like this. Maybe in a too abrupt way, but it teaches us that we always have to be honest with the people. On the contrary, things can turn all against us. I hope that you all enjoyed the narrative and that I left all of you with a smile on your face.
In Syria, once, there dwelt a company of traders rich, all sober men and true, that far abroad did send their spicery and cloth of gold in satins rich and new. It came to pass, the masters of this sort decided that to Rome they all would wend, were it for business or for only sport. Wend themselves to Rome, this is the end. Remained have now these merchants in that town a certain time, as fell to their pleasance, and so it happened that the high renown of the emperor's daughter, called Lady Constance. Now, so it was, these merchants stood in grace of Syrian Sultan, and so wise was he that when they came from any foreign place, make them good cheer, inquiring earnestly. Among some other things, especially these merchants told him tales of Constance the fair. From such nobility, told of earnestly, the Sultan had a wish, to love that lady fair. Proudly he said, "Nay, rather than lose the Lady Constance, I'll be christened, yes. I must be hers, I can other choose. I pray you let be no rebelliousness." The mother of the Sultan, well of vices, "My lords," said she, "you know well every man, my son will leave the ancient sacrifices, the holy recepts of our Alcoran, but the life shall rather from my body start than Islam's law out of my faithful heart. O sudden hope that ever will succeed upon your most glad day, bear then in mind that ends the joy of earthly toil indeed, the unknown harm and woe that come behind. For, but to tell you briefly, in one word, the Sultan and the Christians, everyone, were all you down and thrust throughout the board, save the fair Lady Constance, she alone. O Constance mine, she sails upon the wide South Sea. O Emperor's young daughter, from afar, they, ever given clothing, and of food great quantity. He that is Lord of Fortune be your star. For years and days drift this maiden pure, before the wild waves and the wind shall drive through the seas on an adventure, her vessel where it shall some day arrive. Forth into our own ocean then she came, through all our wild wide seas, until at last, under a keep whose name I cannot name, and on the sands drove hard and stuck so fast. The warden of the castle had for her so great pity, as had his wife, that both they were wept for ruth. She said she'd been bewildered by the sea, and had lost recollection by her truth. But Satan, that ever waits men to beguile, he made a young knight living in the town, and wondering how to be revenged the while, loved her so madly, with full passion flown. He wooed her, but it all availed him not. She would not sin in any wise or way, and, for despite, he plotted in his thought to make her die a death of shame some day. And he went and crept stealthily one night, slept the warden's wife and Constance. By Satan's tempting came this night. He killed the wife, and laid the knife by fair Constance. Soon after came the warden home again, and with him Allah, king of all that land, and saw his wife so pitilessly slain, for which he wept and cried and wrung his hand. King Allah was apprised of this sad chance, and told the time and where, and in what wise was found in a wrecked ship the fair Constance, but in the king's heart pitied their eyes. For as the lamb unto his death is brought, so stood his innocent before the king, and the false knight that had this treason wrought, he swore that it was she had done this thing. A book of Gospels in sight of everybody in that place was brought, and on this book he swore and on their guilt. Both his eyes burst forth out of his face, and down he fell, as stunned as by a stone. This lying knight was slain for his untruth, by sentence of King Allah hastily. Yet Constance had upon his death great ruth, and after this Allah take her in marriage solemnly. But who was said, if I am not to lie, who thought her wicked heart must burst in two, was the king's mother, full of tyranny. She would have never thought this thing to do. On her the king got a man-child right known, and to a bishop and a warden he gave his wife to guard while he was gone to Scotland, there is enemies to seek. The time was come, a baby boy she bore, and wrote unto King Allah at the front. This constable sent forth a messenger of all this glad event, a full account. This messenger drank deep of ale and wine, the letter stole by King's mother, stealthily, out of his box while he slept like a swine, and counterfeited was, right cleverly. The letter said the baby was an horrible creature, come there by chance of charm or sorcery. The mother was an elf or fairy sure, and all good men ate their company. Sad was the king when this letter had seen, but to no man he told his sorrow sore. With his own hand he wrote back again, a kind letter sealed, the Lord's will has to be done. This messenger came from the king again, and at the king's old mother's court did light. She stole and rewrote every letters again. Constance has to go away tonight. Both the young and the old of all that place, because the king this cursed letter sent, and Constance, with a deathly pallid face, that evening to the ship she went. With her son she gazed long backward at the land, and took her leave, and with an high intent, and up she rose and walked right down the strand. She crossed herself, and aboard ship she went. Allah the king came home soon after this. Unto his castle his heart grew cold, and asked for wife and child whom he did miss, and to him plainly all the story has been told. Then he saw his seal and the false missive, the hand that letter wrote was known. His mother slew, as men may plainly read, because she being false to her sworn. King Allah, who had his mother slain, upon a day fell to such repentance that, but to tell it briefly and be plain, to Rome he came to pay his just penance. Even the fair Constance was arrived in Rome, and here Allah saw and greeted her, then wept with joy, feeling again at home, because at first glance he recognized that it was her.
In questa casa fa molto caldo, il frate cappuccino sta arrivando, te la prenderai per un bugiardo, mi sembrava amore ma era altro. Spendi di qua, spendi di là, ma mio marito più soldi non mi dà. Il frate dov'è? Mi chiede come va, mi chiede come va, come va, come va. Sai già come va, come va, come va. Penso più veloce per capire se domani tu mi fregherai. Non ho tempo per chiarire perché solo ora so cosa sei. È difficile stare al mondo quando non hai più un soldo. Lasci casa in un giorno, tu dimmi se stavo solo soldi, soldi, come se avessi avuto soldi, soldi. Dimmi se sei mio cugino, menti, menti. Mi chiedevi come va, come va, come va. Adesso come va, come va, come va. Do io questi soldi, non ti preoccupare cara. Mi dicevi che adesso di stare come una sera. Do io questi soldi ma li rubi al mio marito. Ora l'ho capito, fratello, il gioco è finito. Io da te volevo solo soldi. È difficile stare al mondo quando non hai più un soldo. Mio marito sta a cagno, tu dimmi se stavo solo ai soldi, soldi, come se